Well, at FFA TV, we're delighted to be joined by Her Majesty Queen Noor Al Hussein of Jordan, who describes herself as a global citizen, a proud mother, and an advocate for cross-cultural understanding and conflict prevention. And you've just given the special keynote opening address to the FFA this year. One of your key messages, Your Majesty Queen Noor, was a laser-like focus on women, looking at the challenges that we're looking at the forum today: healthy food, healthy farming, healthy future, big issues. Empowering women and empowering youth. We've just had World Youth Day. These are causes that you've been championing for decades. What progress have you seen, and how important are these? How close to your heart?
Those are very important areas of focus for me. Women and young people in particular, I think, have not been recognized for the role that women in particular play in rural areas and as primary producers of many of the primary foodstuffs that we depend upon around the world. They live in areas where there is endemic poverty, and where, if not given the resources to enable them to really take more control and to have a greater voice in decisions that are made affecting rural crop production and food security for local communities, as well as for those in urban areas depending on these rural communities, then we are going to suffer greatly. Young people, I think there are probably a multitude of employment opportunities for the hundreds of millions of young people who are unemployed today around the world, and who are living, again, mostly in these poor countries that are trying to produce food, that are suffering intense food insecurity and the effects of climate change. If we do not focus on what we can do to ameliorate conditions that can be improved now through governments, the private sector, non-governmental organizations, working with people at the local level, then we're going to have serious problems in the future. While there is enough food to go around, if it's distributed properly, it's not being distributed, and we have hundreds of millions, 800 million people, and there will be many more in the future, who are malnourished. And that, as those numbers increase, so will our ability to feed the rest of the world. So we are all connected in this. Women and young people can play vital roles that will also enable them to feel that they have a contribution to make, and will be using the energy that is needed to keep those communities stable and peaceful and productive.
We're connecting quite a lot of people at the forum today, where we're trying to connect quite a lot of energy between government, institutions, citizens, farmers and business. How important is it to you to communicate on platforms like this? And in your experience, does it produce a tangible level of understanding and influence?
I can't imagine that it doesn't produce that. This began as a European meeting. It has now broadened itself to international. I hope that we'll see more and more representatives from the developing world. Certainly many here represent work that they're doing in the developing world, but it would be great to have, we have farmers from Europe here, and it would be great to have farmers and indigenous people from other communities around the world exchange in the wisdom that they have, that's been passed down often generation to generation. I think that bringing people together from so many different perspectives, one says the stakeholders, all the stakeholders at the table, but in this case it really is being accomplished here, and it's creating a dialogue that I think is absolutely vital and critical. And I did indicate just earlier this morning that I would very much like to see an FFA presence in the Middle East. Our region is desperately in need of the kind of multi-sector, this inclusive, participatory dynamic that is based on bringing people together who may have very opposing positions on different issues, and helping to find the common ground and the ways in which we can all work together for a more sustainable future. Our region suffers, as I was saying earlier this morning, from we've made great improvements, as the world has, in over many decades, but we suffer from chronic malnutrition that's increasing, and obesity, the highest rates in the world, and the highest rates of income inequality. And those are dangerous. That's a dangerous combination, and it's one that we need to address. And I think the FFA, could help us brainstorm and exchange information and possibilities that might, in fact, assist our region considerably.
I think exchanging wisdom is a great way to describe it. And listening is really, really important.
It's absolutely key, as you know.
Sharing examples is another thing that we're putting a particular focus on this year. You talk of real initiatives away from charity, the traditional charity-oriented social welfare. And you will talk about rural women in Jordan and the Middle East region. Do you find that communicating those practical examples, I know that the Noor Al Hussein Foundation has a focus on that has real tangible benefit?
I think it does, and I don't mean to dismiss charitable initiatives as being unimportant, but when you're talking about national social welfare strategies, one of the first things I did almost 40 years ago after I married in Jordan was to try to focus on the economic potential of women and poor communities so that they wouldn't remain, as had been traditionally the case, passive recipients of charity and handouts, women in particular, but in fact could become actors taking charge and ownership of their own lives, their families, their communities, and contributing. And in turn, these projects help to demonstrate to the entire community the incredibly valuable role that women could play outside the home as well as inside the home. And one didn't have to lose because of the other, which was a very important cultural nuancing that we needed to make, that I think is important no matter where you live in the world. So these programs help to not only inspire interest on the part of other NGOs and over time even of the government that has begun to rely on us to help them with national strategies, not just the ones that started in small communities, but we've also helped other countries in the region, including the super wealthy countries in the region, develop programs that could enhance the capacity building of their women in local communities as well. So we've been able to have an impact, and beyond the Arab world as well, and further out in Western Asia. So yes, especially in our culture, if you develop a program and can demonstrate the value, not only to the family but to the community or even the country at large, immediately, and if it's replicable, which is a very important factor, then people immediately start copying it. And so that is how progress occurs: is imitative sort of attitudes towards what seems to work. And so that has been my approach: is try to develop best practice models, put them out there. When they succeed, let others take it and move on, and then we'll try to develop, look into other areas where we can help to fill the gaps.
And that idea of setting a good example, of course, extends into other roles, other hats you wear as a proud mother and as a grandmother. You talk to mothers as being the anchor of the family. I wonder, being able to educate on a local level as a mother so that those examples can be replicated, does it give you hope for the future? We have these global themes to tackle, and yet small scale, local level, empowering children, we can all play our part, right?
Absolutely. There is a part to be played for everyone, from the most local level, from, as you pointed out, the mother and the sons and daughters that are going to be influenced by the mother's attitude to life or the priorities she sets for her children to have more than she did: a better education, better health, a better understanding of healthy living and food, and a vision of an economic possibility that she may not have enjoyed. And it's those kinds of mothers that really raise the generations that can help to contribute to sustainable development and real peace and security in our world. But there are roles to play for the private sector, there are, for the government, for all the stakeholders that FFA brings together, because from the smallest scale up to the largest, if we're not all at the table, as I emphasized in my remarks, if there isn't an inclusive, participatory approach that integrates all the different sectors that we have to depend upon for real sustainable development, then we won't succeed.
Thank you so much for your time today. It's a very interesting prospect to come to the Middle East and talk more and have this participation. So we really look forward to that.
I hope it'll be a win-win for everyone. I can't imagine not.
Your Majesty Queen Noor, thank you very much.